Does Sam Dickinson make the NHL? Is going to be one of the biggest stories of training camp. We dive into it.
You're Locked On Sharks, your daily podcast on the San Jose Sharks, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, welcome to Locked On Sharks, the premier hockey podcast covering your favorite team in the Bay Area. My name is JD Young, caretaker at the Reef, also the co-host of Locked On NHL. I want to thank you for making Locked On Sharks your first listen. Proudly part of the Locked On Network. We cover your team every day, or at least 3 days a week right now. If you want to be an everydayer, all you have to do is just follow along wherever you get podcasts, or you can watch on YouTube as well. And today we're going to be examining the Sam Dickinson question and if he is ready to be in the NHL next year. And by looking at what Sam Dickinson has done so far, especially this last season, we're going to look at other CHL defensemen who made the jump to the NHL, or at least tried to make the jump to the NHL in their D+2 season, and then why I think it's the right move for the Sharks to have Dickinson play in the NHL, despite what's probably going to be a rough year. So before we get to all that, do want to let you guys know that today's episode is brought to you by Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off your first purchase. So we know Sam Dickinson, pretty good hockey player, at least what we've seen so far. He is unfortunately stuck in the dilemma of because of his age slash being a CHL draftee and the new rules not kicking in quite yet. He is one of those guys who unfortunately is going to be one of the last of these guys, most likely of guys who are stuck between you either have to play in the NHL or you have to go back to the OHL. Right, we know the new rules now where kids are going to able to go to college, but unfortunately, Dickinson has already signed his ECL or so entry his ELC. Sorry, excuse me, his entry level contract. So he's not eligible to go play college. Hockey is a rule that just kind of went into this effect, and you're seeing a lot of players take advantage of this, right? A couple of the Sharks draftees who spent the last season playing, in the WHL, now going to be going to play in college. You see a guy like Gavin McKenna, right, who's going to play his draft year in college. We've discussed that Michael Misa is a potential college guy, but unfortunately, Dickinson, who's signed his ELC already, that option is not available. We also know that starting next year, teams will be allowed to pick one player that is 19 years old to play in the AHL, and Sam Dickinson would be a perfect candidate for that. But unfortunately, again, that rule doesn't apply till next year. So Dickinson is one of these guys that are kind of stuck between you either have to play in the NHL or you have to go back to juniors. So let's kind of, before we kind of dig into why I think it's the right decision and look at some other people, let's just kind of review Sam Dickinson's year because it was pretty good. So this season for the London Knights, Sam Dickinson had 55 games. He had 29 goals, 62 assists with 245 shots on goal in the regular season. Set the London record for most points by a defenseman. Also played at World Juniors, where he himself admitted not the World Juniors that he wanted to. But then we saw Dickinson in the playoffs have a monster run as well. In 17 playoff games this year, he had 9 goals, 22 assists for 31 points in 17 games. Again, 31 points in 17 playoff games. While having two penalty minutes. And if you're into plus minus, he was a plus 22 in the postseason and a plus 64 in the regular season on an absolute stacked London Knights team. London, of course, won the OHL championship. And then they went to the Memorial Cup, where Dickinson put up 6 assists in 5 games, had 4 penalty minutes. Oh my goodness, what is wrong with him? And as London kind of got their, I don't want to say revenge, but they finished the job and won the Memorial Cup this year. Dickinson racked up a ton of hardware as well, of course, as a two-time OHL champion, one-time Memorial champion, was a first team's all CHL, that is all WHL, Q, OHL, first team all-star in those. He was the defenseman of the year in the CHL. Again, the same thing, all three leagues combined. He was, of course, all OHL team. Like, he's insanely productive year for Mr. Dickinson. Looking at kind of some of his stats or his analytics and stuff, NHL Foley on Twitter does a great job with his cards, and looking at instat data and being basically kind of spitting it out for us. Dickinson 99th percentile when it came to scoring, absolute amazing, like goals per 60, primary assists per 60, goals above, like just anything offensively. Dickinson, absolute rock star with it. Helping to generate offense, the same thing. Absolute rock star doing all that. Defensively, on ice, expected goals per 60, very good. Corsi against, so kind of limiting those shots attempts, very good as well. Won a bunch of battles. Hits are low. I don't like. My thing is if you don't have the puck, you tend to hit more typically. But anyway, transition 76.7%. Great, like turns it over a little bit, and that's part of London's like go plus how much Dickinson handles the puck with their transitions. But usually when he got it going, it turned out to be a successful, like one of the highest rated defense prospects in NHL Foley's kind of the way he grades. I think he has him as the number 2 defenseman, the way he grades. So looking at advanced hockey stats from JFresh, they have Dickinson as a 100% chance to become an full-time NHL player. For them, a full-time NHL player is 200 games with a positive WAR being wins above replacement, with a 36% chance to become a star. That is, a star is a top 18.5% of WAR per 82 games. Right, so kind of the cream of the crop, creme de la creme. I don't know. Byron Bader, a little bit lower on the NHLer probability. His NHLer is 200 games, and then but higher on the star probability. His star probability for defenseman is a 0.45 goals per game. He has a 58% star probability, 77% NHLer. Some of his comps: Zach Werenski, Rasmus Dahlin, just to name a few. Now that kind of as he continues to round out his game. So Dickinson has done basically everything right that you could ask for, both on a team and a personal level in the OHL. On a very good level. Yes, again, London, insanely good. Like this was, I think I counted, they had 12 or 13 players at one point who were drafted in the NHL. Like, this is a very good London team. Yes. Okay. But Sam Dickinson was one of the core pieces to a very good London team. And if you watched London, basically at any point, Sam Dickinson played a lot of meaningful ice time, right? On the power play, on the penalty kill, 5-on-5, at the end of games when they're trying to close out. Sam Dickinson's usually on the ice there, as he was asked a lot from this London team. And he responded in kind, as again, London went on a absolute tear this season. Again, winning the OHL regular season championship, winning the OHL championship in the playoffs, and then, of course, topping it off with the Memorial Cup. And Dickinson, like I said, racking up a ton of hardware throughout the regular season. So honestly, one of the best possible seasons you could have hoped for Sam Dickinson. And you saw a lot of improvements in the things that Dickinson needed to work on, mainly kind of his decision making, especially when he kind of gets pressured. And that's still going to be a question. We'll talk about that a little bit more at the end, but you did see tangible improvements in those areas. And it does feel like Dickinson is probably ready for a new challenge. So what what could we potentially expect, right? So I went and I looked at 3 defensemen recently who drafted high, top mostly or all these guys were actually top 10 picks. Sam Dickinson, of course, top 11 pick, who played NHL games in their D+2 seasons, right? So after their draft, they get drafted, they play a full season with their juniors. And then what happened the next year, as these guys were also in that case of we can't go play college. We can't play in the AHL. It's either NHL or OHL. So I looked at 3 recent cases to kind of see how these guys performed. And we'll get to that here in just 1 second. Ever wish managing money felt easier with Monarch Money? It can be. Whether you're growing your savings or planning a big purchase, Monarch puts you in the driver's seat. It's like having your own personal CFO, giving you full visibility and control over your finances. Monarch Money is more than just a budgeting app. It's a complete financial command center. You can track all your accounts, investments, and spending in one place. So in addition to managing your money, you're also building wealth. The great thing about it is maybe if you and your partner have separate accounts that you have, you do with your own money, and then you have personal account or a shared account where you're trying to work towards a big goal, whether it's buying a new house, buying a car, or just saving up for that next adventure. Monarch Money makes it easy to both work on your personal goals while also working towards your shared goal as well. So take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONNHL at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. That's monarchmoney.com, code LOCKEDONNHL for half off your first year. All right, before we continue, do of course want to thank you for making Locked On Sharks your first listen. Again, even though we're down to the off season with 3 episodes a week, that still doesn't mean we have great stuff coming down the pipeline. Pipeline. Anyway, more stuff coming down. So make sure you're following along. We got some great interviews that we got working on. We're going to continue to look at some of the new Sharks prospects and start to kind of gear up for the training camp in the new season, which will be here sooner than you realize. So make sure you're following along wherever you get podcasts. And of course, you can watch on YouTube as well. All right. So I wanted to look at 3 guys who are kind of in the same type of situation as Sam Dickinson, right? Guys who are in the CHL, drafted from the CHL, defensemen who had to either make the plunge into the NHL or go back to the OHL. So I looked at 3 guys who I thought all kind of fit in, again, highly touted prospects. So guys who are in the top 15 kind of picks. So it turns out all these guys top 10 picks. So let's start with one, Brandt Clarke. So Brandt Clarke, of course, was the pick by the LA Kings in the 2021 draft. He was 8th overall, of course, the pick right after William Eklund. Brandt Clarke, who played for the Barrie Colts, in the OHL. One little kind of slight thing is just because of the COVID year in the OHL was closed down. He did have to go play in Slovakia for a season, but the 21-22 season, after he got drafted, he played a full year with the Barrie Colts. 55 games, 11 goals, 48 assists, 59 points. So very productive season. Nowhere, of course, near what Sam Dickinson did this last year. Again, Dickinson putting up a casual 91 points in 55 games. But again, we're trying to compare what we have. So the following year, the Kings, again, had the same decision, right? Do you put Brandt Clarke, who's clearly kind of outgrowing the OHL, do you put him back? Or do you let him, kind of stick around? So he's a guy who got his 9 games, and then they actually kind of did the thing where he got his 9 games, or I think he had like a little bit of an injury, so they let him do some rehab in the AHL, where he played 5 games there before spending time with the Barrie Colts back in the OHL. So here are what his 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 NHL numbers look like. So 9 games. Remember, in Clark, 6'2", 201 pounds. I always forget Clark's much bigger than I always remember. I always think Clark's closer to 6 feet. He's a big boy. But he had 9 games, 0 goals, 2 assists with 11 shots on goal, playing under 14 minutes a night in that time. Corsi for, so when he was on the ice, the Kings took 51.57% of the shots for. Goals for 44%, which is kind of a trend of right. Catastrophic mistakes by defensemen, young defensemen tend to lead to goals going the other way. The next season, actually, Clark spent a good chunk of the season with the Reign. He played 50 games with the Ontario Reign, with just under a point per game at 46 points, including 10 goals that year. And then got about 16 games with the Kings, 23-24. This last season, made the jump as a full-time NHL player. 78 games, 33 points as well. And he's expected to continue to carve out a bigger and bigger role for the Kings, especially as some of their aging defensemen kind of continue to start aging out. And the hope is Clark kind of takes over for them. So he's the guy who, definitely for the Kings, right? And that was a solid Kings team, right? Made the playoffs, much better situation than what the Sharks would be putting Dickinson in. They took the patient route with Brandt Clarke, sent him back to the OHL, where he had a monster season. He was at 61 points in 31 games in the OHL. There, almost at 2 points per game, and scored 23 goals on a very good Barry Colts team, if I recall correctly. So, another guy who, similar kind of, or I guess not similar, a guy who definitely struggled, and we saw some of the struggles and would be in a much kind of similar situation to what the Sharks might be putting Dickinson in. That's Kevin Korchinski. Korchinski, the 7th overall pick in the 2022 draft. He played with the Seattle Thunderbird in the 22-23 season, where in 54 games, he had 11 goals, 62 assists, 73 points. The next season, the Chicago Blackhawks threw him in the deep end, where he played 76 games for the Blackhawks and posted solid numbers for them. So 76 games, had 5 goals, 10 assists, 93 shots on goal, playing 1937 a night, 44.47% Corsi for, 33% of the goals for. Korchinski, 6'1", 185 pounds, also left-handed defenseman. So Sam Dickinson, a little bit bigger, as he's 6'3", 209 right now. But Korchinski, bad team, they got their teeth kicked in every night, right? And he was, played a ton of minutes on a very bad team. The next season, they kind of took a more conservative approach to try to build up his confidence again, as he played with the Rockford Ice Hogs in the AHL. He played 56 games, had 3 goals, 24 assists, and 27 points in that time, and also got some playoff experience. Did get to play in the NHL this year as well, where he also played 16 games, had a goal, an assist, and 2 points in that time, but definitely saw his ice time drop compared to what he had seen the year before. So, in this year, I think the expectation is for Korchinski to take hopefully be a more kind of complete player and play full-time in the NHL this year. But a guy who definitely, I think, had his confidence rocked from playing in the NHL, and the Chicago kind of took a step back with him, let him play AHL games. And hopefully now he can kind of make the jump and be a full-time NHL guy. So maybe a guy who, again, kind of in that situation of too good to go back to the WHL, but just not quite ready for the NHL. And I think last year was kind of a reset season for him. The final guy, a guy who I think successively made the transition, and that would be Pavel Mintykov from the Anaheim Ducks. So in that same 2022 2022 draft. He was picked 10th overall by the Ducks. Mintyukov was playing with the Saginaw Spirit / the Ottawa 67s in this 22-23 season, the year he was drafted, where he had combined 24 goals, and I'm trying to do math on the fly here, and about 75, like he put up a ton of points, like almost 90 points that season, while playing more games. He played about 69 games that year, but put up almost over 90 points that year, or close to 90 points that season. Absolute like dominant season from Mintyukov. Next year, played the full season with the Anaheim Ducks, and again had a pretty successful season. 63 games that year, 4 goals, 24 assists, 88 shots on goal, playing a hair under 19 minutes a night, 46.36% Corsi for, 36.25% goals for. And again, the Ducks, pretty similar situation that year with the Sharks, of kind of where the Sharks are, of a team that's still trying to kind of pull themselves out of the bottom or the basement of the league. For Mintyukov, he this past year saw a little bit of a dip in production, as 5 goals, 14 assists for 19 shots on goal, but for 19 total points in 68 games. But you did see some of the, Jackson Lacombe make a big jump. Some of the other defensemen that they added, of course, with some of the veterans that they added. So you saw him kind of maybe take a little bit of a step back. And it does feel like they have to kind of make a choice between him and Owen Zellweger at some point, but different conversation for different day. But successfully, I think, transitioned from the OHL to the NHL. So what does this kind of mean for Dickinson? Is we have 3 clear paths, right, of a guy who went back to the OHL, dominated, and now is kind of ready to take on a bigger role with Brandt Clark. We have a guy who in Kevin Korchinski, who probably got pushed in a little bit too early. Now, like, they had to kind of have a reset year with him in the AHL. Now you're hoping he can kind of refine himself. And then you have a third guy in Mintyukov, and a guy who's ready to kind of continue his growth and has been a good NHL player the last 2 seasons. So what does this kind of mean for Dickinson, and why I still think him playing in the NHL is the right decision? We'll get to that here in just 1 second. We've all been there, logging on early and waiting forever for concert tickets to go on sale, only to lose your spot for a show you've been dying to see. Live music should be about making memories, not dealing with the stress of ticket shopping. That's where Gametime comes in. Gametime makes getting concert tickets faster and easier than ever. Prices actually drop as it gets closer to showtime, and you can save up to 60% off with their killer last minute deals. My wife going to see Backstreet Boys in Vegas here next month. Use Gametime, 1, because she was looking for great ticket prices, but 2, because of the panoramic seat views, right? She's a little worried about the sphere, like maybe having some, some of the screens blocked, or just, what she's going to be kind of expecting. Gametime made it super easy. Her and her friend are going to Backstreet Boys, and she couldn't be more excited. So take the guesswork out of buying tickets and for concerts and shows with Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONNHL, LOCKEDONNHL, for $20 off. Download Gametime today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. All right, before we finish up, do of course want to thank you for making Locked On Sharks your first listen. When you're done checking out this episode, go check out the Locked On NHL podcast. There's no off season, as we're still bringing you daily episodes covering the biggest stories around the league that matter the most, with the local coverage you love from Locked On. So find Locked On NHL on YouTube, wherever you listen to podcasts. Okay, so we saw 3 different stories for 3 different players who with all their outcomes, right? The thing I do think you have to kind of keep in mind with Dickinson, especially compared to these other guys, is I do think Dickinson has some different strengths to them. Like, going back and reading and looking at some of these guys' their draft profiles and seeing like how they graded out compared to Sam Dickinson. Like Sam Dickinson is a little bit of a little bit different player. I don't want to say better player, but Dickinson has his strengths kind of differently compared to these guys. And we know Dickinson in his skating, he is one of the better skaters and was graded as one of the best skaters in his draft class. And, again, elite prospects grading, it's not the end all be all, but it's a really nice grade to kind of utilize because, all right, you can kind of compare, especially for guys year over year. And Dickinson graded graded as a 7 compared out of 9 compared to skater years. Clark was a 5. Korchinski was a 5. And then Mintyukov was a 6. So I think it's fair to say Dickinson, better skater, maybe more likely to kind of outskate some of his issues. Physicality, Dickinson also rated a 6.5 compared to these guys who also kind of all rated around the same, 5, 5, and 6. But the hockey sense, Clark was a 7. Korchinski was a 6. And Mintyukov was a 7, while Sam Dickinson rated as a 5. That's always going to be the big thing with Dickinson, especially that decision making on the fly or when you get pressured, and something the Sharks are going to have to work with him. So while there are like 3 different big outcomes here, right? And again, Clark, who the Kings, who were in a position, and again, it's like the Sharks aren't in a position here, but the Kings in a much better team in a position where they could be a little bit more patient with Clark because they had established defensemen who they knew weren't going to be going anywhere, right? Like Drew Doughty, etc. Like they have guys who are just not, they knew were going to be on the roster for a while, right? You have the Blackhawks, who just like the Sharks in a rebuild. And I think it's fair to say maybe they rushed Korchinski, getting him out there. But if you look at the Ducks situation, I think the Ducks kind of clearly is similar to the Sharks, right? Where they have some veteran defensemen around, right? An improving team with a young forward core, and Mintyukov was able to survive for that first year, like that first full season. And I think because the Ducks were able to put him in a position to succeed. And I think the Sharks can follow that same path, right? Like Dickinson isn't going to have to play first pairing minutes and have to kind of eat up a bunch of ice time in the beginning, like especially early on, because they went out and you got Orlov, right? You got John Klingberg, and you got Nick Leddy this offseason to go with Muka Madulin and Ferraro and Liljegren, and we know Jack Thompson's going to be in the fray and whomever else, right? But some of these veteran guys to kind of, and all these guys have played, right? We know Orlov's played a lot of big minutes for the Carolina Hurricanes. He's played a lot of big minutes for a lot of good, very good teams, right? Klingberg, who's we know he's kind of been working his way back from an injury the past couple seasons, but was a key piece to the Dallas Stars and their playoff success. Not too long ago, we'll say, but still a guy who can provide a lot of offense, and you're not asking Dickinson to kind of do that, right? And Nick Leddy, a veteran who's won, Stanley Cup and has been a very good defenseman. And we talked about with Leddy why I think the numbers were down last year because of the injury and maybe not just being 100%. But I think with having these veterans around, and then again Mario Ferraro, a guy who's been asked to do way too much, and I think you're able to insulate Dickinson a little bit better. And yes, I know you can't do the full Will Smith treatment that we saw last year with Dickinson, where you're, kind of shelter him a little bit, especially on the ice. It's harder to do that with defensemen, but I think Dickinson's skills of how great of a skater he is, how physical he is, and the improved decision-making and reaction and that we've seen from him over the last year, I think he's ready. Like, I think it's, I would 100%, if I could put him in the AHL, I would put him in the AHL. But again, we can't, right? It's either NHL or OHL. And I think sending him back to the OHL where he's going to score a bajillion points. And I actually worry that he's going to fall into bad habits again because this London team is just not going to be as good without all the other pieces there. And he's going to have to maybe push harder or try to be more aggressive to drive offense for a London team. I just worry he might kind of work on kind of some bad habits. So I think with the Sharks and the way that they're developing, right? And again, use a little bit using the Will Smith template of like keep it slow, especially in the beginning. Don't ask too much of him, right? Put him in a position to succeed. I think you can play him on third pairing minutes. Put him in positive situations or neutral situations. And then as he gets used to it and grows and gets more confident, I think for him, like it's not the physicality of it, because I think he's got an NHL, like close to an NHL physique right now, especially with how big and strong and how well he skates. I think he can survive physically, but I think for him, it's going to be more about the mental part of the game. But Dickinson, like he just seems like such a kind of, I think he's got the right attitude of just that kind of more chill, low key type of player, like just mentally. Again, that's not how he plays, but I think he's got the right mental aspect for it. So I think again, I'm gonna a year from now, is Sam Dickinson going to be a better player if he goes back and just destroys OHL competition, or is he going to be a better player if he gets his butt kicked for a year in the NHL? And I think he's going to be a better player if he gets his butt kicked in the NHL for a season. So, but yeah, I think with the Sharks, they're hopefully improved defensive pieces. I think they can kind of insulate him a little bit better and put him in a position to succeed. And I think that's why Sam Dickinson playing in the NHL this year, I think it's the right decision. So we'll see. The Sharks can give him every opportunity to try to win a job at a camp. They've kind of cleared the pipeline and cleared the logjam with the Henry Thrun trade. And I fully expect Dickinson to be in the Sharks opening night roster when they play the Vegas Golden Knights. Oh, it was October 9th, I think is the first game. So I fully expect him to be in that lineup. Can he stay past the 9 games is going to be the big question. So we'll be back next week as we continue our off-season programming. Again, we're down to 3 episodes a week. Probably going to be a Monday, Wednesday, Thursday is most likely going to be the schedule unless otherwise notified. So make sure you're following along wherever you get podcasts. And of course, you can watch on YouTube as well. Follow the show on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram at Locked On Sharks. Follow me, Twitter, and Blue Sky at My Fry Hole. Till next week. Bye, friends.